The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
Hey, this is Tyler.
And this is K.C.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast. What is happening, all you people? I am just sitting here on the Shaws of Lake Fork looking at a deer mount staring me down.
You people.
It is the time of year where we hide inside as much as we can. I worked outside until about 11 today, and then after that, it is AC time. I'm here with Tyler Jones, of course, and we have been discussing all types of stuff today. We have been talking about all the cute clothes we wear, all the awesome pieces of technology we have these days, but really, I say it kind of jokingly, but at the same time, we are trying to push and get some new merchandise together for us all to wear for lifestyle stuff for this fall, so be looking for some of that stuff to come out pretty soon. Well, I shouldn't say pretty soon. Sometime before the first day of fall.
Before deer season.
Yeah. When is the first day of fall?
Man, in Texas, it's about November 26th.
Yeah. You know, growing up, I kind of had this idea of like a winter that started like in November and went all the way until like February. Mm-hmm. But fall didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's still that way, really.
Fall's supposed to be this time where it's like cool outside and there's orange and red and yellow leaves falling. But really, everything just turns brown. Because it dies immediately.
It's actually just concealed by the drought. I think it would be spring, summer, drought, fall. I think it's kind of or winter, rather. Yeah. But anyways, we're gonna kind of get some stuff together. Maybe come up with a couple cool new T-shirts, expand our hats, and all that kind of stuff. And really, it's just so that we get to wear some cooler stuff, and maybe y'all can reap the benefits if you want to.
I'm actually going to embroider. I got 2 blank hats. I'm going to get embroidered, and I'm going to get them done like nobody else can get. Nobody else can get those?
Bats.
Blats.
Yeah. But, so before we go on with more nonsense, we do have a pretty cool guest for the podcast today. He's just kind of a... I don't know. It's a good Texas and elsewhere too, just kind of deer podcast, right? Tyler, who are we talking to?
Oh, Slick Mick Hellickson.
Slick Mick. I bet you that was his name running around on the King Ranch. Yeah. Mick is a esteemed wildlife biologist and is really into growing trophy whitetails. That's the thing he does. He's done it in Iowa, does it in Texas, does it all over. So. Has some cool kind of historic information about the King Ranch, which if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a giant, almost 1 million acre ranch in kind of South Gulf Coast, Texas, that grows some huge deer. So
they said, I heard that if you took the fence and stretched it out from the King Ranch northward, it would go to Boston.
That's eastward.
Well, it's east and north.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where would it go? Winnipeg, if it went straight north?
I have no clue.
I don't know either.
Winnipeg sounds like a made-up place.
It is.
It's good.
Yeah, for sure. It's that, actually, you remember those Coke commercials where the polar bears and the penguins all played together? That was Winnipeg, I think.
Those still come around every Christmas.
Yeah. I don't watch TV, so I don't know.
That's all right. I don't know that because 3 years ago was the last time I had a TV too. But I just figured that they're still coming around. Yeah. I don't know. It could be canceled. Who knows? At this point, I can't trust anything.
That's right, man. I'm not going to divulge too much further into the cancellation stuff. But anyways, there is what some would consider a national holiday approaching soon. Personally, in my family, we try our best to not celebrate about near anything unless our family makes us. So,
just because you don't like black pepper on your potatoes?
That's right. That's right, man. I don't know. Holidays are just goofy to me sometimes. I just don't understand the concept of like appreciating your family more on certain days.
I don't either.
And I don't. First of all, this is a whole nother deal, and probably not in the hunting spectrum of podcasts. But I don't know if we're going to do Santa, man. I really don't.
We have, and I won't go into why. But we have enlightened our two kids for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Anyways.
I thought you were going July 4th here, but you're actually going to a different holiday.
No. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. July 4th is what it is. Either way, I don't like to celebrate that because it's so hot on July 4th.
Y'all sing that one song, God Bless America, in church too, right?
Oh, my goodness. It drives me crazy. I lose my mind. They don't ask me to lead those days. But anyways, the one that is fast approaching, many of you listening probably will participate in or reap the benefits of, is Father's Day.
Yep.
Right? So all you dads out there, I didn't say dad bods, but dads, those are two different things. There is a holiday approaching. I guess it's this Sunday, right?
I think so.
I don't really know for sure.
Yeah, I believe it is.
One of the things that happens around Father's Day is that brands in the outdoor world like to run sales and stuff. And it's a cool thing because it's an opportunity for you to get a break on some stuff. And a couple of the folks we work with are doing that deal. So OnX is doing a 30% off. Is it just the premium or the 50 state, or is it all of it?
It is a 30% off code.
DAD, dad.
Dad will save.
Not number one dad, just dad.
That's right. Yeah, dad. Yeah. I don't misspell it, spell it backwards, nothing like that. Save new subscribers 30%.
Yeah, so, okay. So you have to be a new subscriber. So if you haven't subscribed to OnX, head over to their website, check out what they got going on, and you'll get 30% off of
the Hunt app. That doesn't include the surfing app and all the other apps they have.
Exactly. Yeah, don't get on the nationalshellfish.org OnX app or whatever it might be. But the OnX Hunt app is where you need to be. Yeah. All right, and that, guys, honestly, you hear us talk about it all the time, whether we're giving a direct plug or just using it daily, because that's what we do. Literally, during this podcast with Mick, I was on OnX. Okay, I had to figure out where exactly the King Ranch borders were. And it's super helpful in this state or wherever. We do the 50 state deal, and man, I mean, it is nice to be able to just turn the Michigan layer on when you go to scout in Michigan,
I bet I'm on OnX at least 300 days a year.
At least, dude. At the very least, for sure. I would be right there with you. And the ones that I'm not, it's probably because I don't have cell phone service, so I don't really. And there's a cure for that, too. You can save offline maps, so there you go. Another one is Cruiser saddles.
Cruiser.
So
so they've got a 10% off for their dad Father's Day. The promo code is, and I don't know if this is all caps or cap sensitive, but it looks like it's all caps. It says Cruiser for Dad. How do you spell Cruiser, KC?
C-U. No, C-R-U. C-R-U-Z-R.
There you go.
But it's not
Put you on the spot.
It's
yeah.
It has the double dots above the U. It looks like a smiley face.
Yeah. C-R-U-Z-R for the number 4 Dad, and that'll get you 10% off the entire store, which they actually have just got a bunch of the new platforms
Secret platforms.
So they're like hot off the press shipping those things out right now.
They are.
And they are bad to the bone.
Cruiser has some cool hats. So if you're
cats,
cats. if you're not wanting to, or if you already bought you a nice saddle or platform, you can go get a hat over there for fairly inexpensive that looks real good. But I don't know if they thought about this, but I have another design they can do. So I know they kind of have like the bold print or whatever for their logo, but what if they went with like a script pencil, but then for the U, they put an actual smiley face? Wouldn't that be cool? I'll talk to Chad and let him know when it's time to rebrand. That's what they're going to do.
That's like the Forrest Gump deal, you know.
That's it, man.
Where he made the smiley face deal.
That's it. Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea.
Good.
Man.
I'm glad you like that.
I do. You're into the merch thing. You're really nailing it.
I'm thinking about that stuff right now. So we don't have a ton going on in the whitetail world right now. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. If I am being honest, we have a lot going on, but it's all digital. We are really busy planning hunts, really busy just working out logistics. We're going to head up and do Map Scout Challenge stuff. Challenge, I say it that way because we're headed to Pennsylvania, Ohio, maybe Indiana, and Michigan. And we're going to go up there and just invade all y'all's territory and scout some whitetails out. If you have questions or anything, or you want us to look at a spot or whatever, and you live in that area, let us know. But we've been planning for that. Really excited about that. We are planning all the element crew hunts and stuff. We got some stuff going early season and stuff going mid-season, late season, and all this stuff going right now. But in the field is not real busy. Tyler, you and I have kind of determined that summertime trail cameras can be fun, but not very rewarding when it comes to actually translating it into taking deer. We were discussing this morning. We had trail camera video of a buck eating persimmons from late August or early September or something last year. And then I had an encounter with this deer about 2 miles from there in December. So that can just show you how, it doesn't do you any good.
How much you can waste your time.
Yeah, that's right. How much you can sweat and waste your time and get trail cameras out in the summer. Now, given it's fun, I love getting those summertime pictures. If you have your own private property, it could be a little bit different than that too. If you have more holding capabilities, or I'll be frank, like the stuff I learn from putting trail cameras out is way more valuable sometimes than the actual photo data that we get back. You know what I mean? Like when we're out sweating, stomping around in late July, putting out cameras or something, I feel like we learn a lot about properties at that time of year.
Yeah, and then you also get immunity to ticks
and all this stuff.
Forgot about that.
That's right, man.
That was the last coronavirus.
This ain't the first pandemic, yo.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Crazy thing is they didn't shut it down that time.
I know. How about
they should have put us indoors for sure during Zika.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Because mosquitoes is real.
Yeah, for real.
You can't mask and just hide one of those.
You can actually see them. I think you and HTH are going out of state pretty soon to hang cameras, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go in spirit. HTH
is that the spirit of the wild?
Yeah, that's right. It's inside of me. And
it's a clown show. Man.
He's getting real excited about putting out some cameras up north, and I don't blame him. And I don't know.
He's still young enough to drink regular Coke.
I guess so, you know. Yeah. At another time and place, I might go do that. But right now, maybe I'm overly confident, but I feel like that is not going to be the best place or best way for me to spend my time, efforts, babysitter time, all that during the summer, going and doing something like that. But hey, you know, I might, like I said, I might be overconfident in my abilities to kill a deer in the fall. So who knows? But I feel like spending time understanding deer habitat, understanding deer movement patterns, understanding maps and how all that stuff correlates. I don't know. We just feel pretty confident about our ability to map scout a place and figure out a place to go hunt, as opposed to go in there and stomp around and get just sweat nasty. You know. So
yep, I know. That's how I feel too, man. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting that mature buck belly. You know,
I am for sure.
But like, I'm just trying to think. It's pretty hot out there. Like you said you were out till about 11 today. I was out for 11 minutes and I sweated so bad, dude. It is nasty out there.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way, man. I think like, you know, I feel like when I look at stuff on the map, I can write stuff off pretty quick and start to find things. And I'm not, I don't know, man. I had a good year last year, great year, but like maybe this year I don't know. We'll see. But I feel pretty confident, and we're going to hunt a lot. So more days you're in the stand, the more chances you're going to probably have. So,
and I think that if you just, I really like what you said about crossing places off. Sometimes if you can sit here and look at a map on a computer screen, you can tell yourself, okay, here's a 1 hour radius, here's a 2 hour radius, whatever it might be. I can hunt anything in this general area. You can really narrow it down to some really good stuff. Whereas opposed to when you drive somewhere, like to go scout or hang cameras or whatever, it's kind of hard to get much more than, 30 minutes from the place you drive to, because you know how it goes. Oh, we're just going to hop in here and, hang a camera right quick. 4 hours later, you're walking out and you're tired and you're looking for a Whataburger. Like it's just, it's a much different deal. But I think that we do not need to undervalue boots on the ground. I mean, it's a thing that we're going to do a ton of this year. But I think that, and I'm not calling Hunter dumb or anything in this deal as well. But I think that what I would like for y'all to take from this, at least, is that the map scouting you do can help you out so much when it comes to actually spending your time wisely once you get to the boots on the ground section.
I think we spent a lot of time on the ground in 2016, 17, 18.
We did.
And I think that we learned a lot, right? But I think we also now could learn a lot from the maps before we did that. That would have saved us some time that we couldn't have learned from the maps back then because we just weren't quite as versed in digital mapping,
Yeah. And truth be told, probably like if I had to move to South Carolina or something, I might need to go do more of the boot stuff again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it's different, or like, Maine or something, you know. But there's still some stuff that, you can kind of have that applies across the board.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and to be honest, like I don't hardly regret any walking around that happens before about March in Texas. Like I have a blast walking in the woods in January and February,
especially with 20 gauge.
Yes, yes, I love it. Like it's one of my favorite things to do. But this time of year, I have lots of regrets, especially from 2017 or whatever that year was. We did so much hanging in the summer.
Yeah. 19 was pretty bad too.
Was it?
Well, we didn't do a ton of it, but we did that one big day where we like really got sick.
Oh, that was like dangerous, dude.
Yeah.
It was like 98 and extremely humid. And it got like, it was the weirdest thing, but it was like probably I was having the most difficulty breathing because of like heat and heat stress, I guess, that I've ever had. And I'm straight up been on 140-degree turf, working out in a college football atmosphere.
We were in probably about as good a shape as you and I have been in together at that point in time,
too.
Because that was like August, and we're fixing to head to the Gila on the 15th of September, so we were getting it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it, too. Maybe we were already a little bit exhausted, but...
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it can definitely, I don't know. We're just trying to spend our time wisely.
That's right.
The older we get year by year, the wiser we get, hopefully. And hopefully it'll help us.
I have some relapses from time to time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Me too.
But I think that it's good to learn lessons, and it's good to be able to kind of draw inferences from other people's experiences. And that's kind of one of the reasons I'm excited to get Mick on the podcast today, because he's been around big deer a ton and he's got to hunt them a bunch too. And like, what a better guy to talk to than a guy who's studied them and hunted them. Most of us, you and I included, we have to find a place to get income elsewhere so that we can support the things that we love to do. He figured out how to get paid to research deer so that he can kill them pretty much,
Yeah.
So anyways, he's got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. This really is just kind of a chat and kind of a, we didn't really have a lot of direction as to we're going to talk about buck bedding, with this podcast, but I really enjoyed it because, it's just like a historic thing with the King Ranch work that he's done. And then of course, talking to anybody who's put their hands on a 190 a couple times in their life, it's probably got something to learn from them.
Yeah, for real.
So you got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Let's holler at Mick.
All right, so now on the phone, I've got Dr. Mick Hellickson. Mick, what are you up to today, man?
Well, I'm just home doing office work in front of the computer.
Yep. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, not really, right?
What is the office work? Is it have to do with deer?
Yeah, always doing something related to deer. That's my profession and my passion, so I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah, how did that become a passion for you?
Well, I grew up in north central Iowa with a love for being outdoors, either hunting, fishing, trapping, hunting, fishing, or hunting. You know, one of those 7 or 8 things I was always doing. So my first love, though, was pheasant hunting. And then in high school, I picked up a bow and arrow for the first time and started bow hunting whitetails. And I had shotgun hunted them before that. But once I started bow hunting and chasing whitetails and the small woodlots of north central Iowa, it just was so intriguing and so challenging that I just forgot about everything else and dove into deer from then on. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's I was actually going through some of my some files that my mom has kept over the years of just my paperwork from school or artwork or whatever, and I know I've always loved deer and wildlife, but I didn't realize like how much I loved it when I was younger. I found some stuff from a long time ago. I was young, where it's just like this immaculate picture of deer and raccoons and birds, and like no telling how long it took me to draw this stuff. Like it would have taken some focus for a 9-year-old me to do that, and I started I was going through this stuff kind of laughing at myself. Like, I can't believe this is, I've kind of forgotten that how much I love these things, so it's definitely something that's hard to explain, once you get older, like, sometimes where it came from and why you have this passion, but, yours turned into educational experience as well. You have a doctorate that's allowed you to kind of work in the biology field, correct?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree from Iowa State in fisheries and wildlife biology. Graduated way back in '88. Moved to Kingsville, Texas to pursue a master's degree in range and wildlife management. Finished that in '91 and then went to the University of Georgia to get a PhD in forest resources with an emphasis on wildlife management. And for both my master's project and my doctorate project, I worked with whitetail deer in South Texas.
Mm-hmm. Do they talk about, in that forestry program, do they talk about mesquite country much?
About mesquite country?
Yes, sir.
No, but that's where my research took place. Mm-hmm. Georgia is the School of Forestry is very well known, but it's for timber management, forest management, mostly with piney woods, mm-hmm. And coming from Iowa and then also from South Texas, living in Georgia for 3 years, that was a kind of a really unique experience coming from the Midwest and then also from South Texas. It was very different.
Do you know anything about Blackbeard?
There's no mesquites over there.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I was kind of in jest there, but do you know anything about the Blackbeard deer?
The Blackbeard deer, I know that there was a monograph written about them. I have that in my library, but other than that, no.
Yeah,
I really don't.
Well, there's I guess an island. Is it Blackbeard Island? It's off of the coast of Georgia there.
No, I think that's right.
Yeah. So, and they're kind of a really small deer subspecies or whatever you want to call it, I guess.
We joke about putting in for the draw for that hunt from time to time and just be kind of a cool experience.
Okay.
But
unique.
Yeah, we all also hate mosquitoes terribly, so it looks like a pretty skeetered up place down there. Did you work closely with Randy DeYoung any?
Yeah, not for my master's or my PhD, but after I became the chief wildlife biologist for the King Ranch, I worked with Randy while he was getting his doctorate degree from Mississippi. Mm-hmm. His 3 study areas was the King Ranch. So I was directly involved with helping Randy to collect data on the King Ranch related to the DNA work that he did.
That's cool. We had him on hundreds of episodes ago to talk about parentage of whitetail deer and genetics and stuff. It was a good talk. So that's cool.
Yeah. His research was some of the most groundbreaking research that's ever been done on whitetails for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, I guess was it Caesar Kleberg that brought Nilgai into the King Ranch? Is that right?
Yeah, that's in the 1930s. King Ranch Nilgai were introduced to King Ranch. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that was something you obviously probably had to work with, or work around or against, or I don't know what your feelings are in regards to that and how they interact with the whitetail deer in that area, huh?
There is some overlap, some dietary overlap. So there's a little bit of competition between Nilgai and whitetail deer, but for the most part, they're non-competitive, and so the two species work fairly well together. But yeah, I mean, from a pure trophy deer management perspective, you'd rather not have anything else on the landscape that's competing with whitetails in any form or fashion, right? Ideally, so.
Yeah. So is there, I know like with hogs, we see a lot of times that hogs will kind of be dominant around deer to the point of taking some of the like preferred habitat and or bedding habitat, and they tend to kind of shift deer around when they come through in their sounders. And is that something that happens with Nilgai and deer in that relationship?
I've seen them graze fairly close to each other. I think deer tolerate Nilgai probably better than they tolerate feral hogs. Anytime a hog comes through, whitetails usually move off, and that happens with Nilgai too, but not to the degree that it does with hogs in my experience.
That's neat. So I guess as the chief biologist there on the King Ranch, does that make you, or did that make you only concerned with whitetail deer and the production, or do you have to think about managing Nilgai as well and other species?
Yeah, the King Ranch is more known for its bobwhite quail population than anything else, and so I did a lot of things related to bobwhite quail management, probably as much of that as I did whitetail deer management while with the King Ranch. But no, it was all game species that we worked with for sure. We had helicopter surveys where we counted not just whitetail deer, but quail coveys, Nilgai, and so we monitored the game species, and then we also monitored to a degree some of the non-game species too on the ranch. So
you're monitoring the species, but did you have to develop management plans for each species as well?
We did. I mean, we set harvest rates for the lessees on the ranch and for the family members in their own hunting club. We set bag limits, and we set harvest goals for quail, for Nilgai, for whitetail deer, all of the above. Yeah.
How do you, what precedence has been set in Nilgai management? How do you know what should be taken or what should be there, and then and obviously that's there's a goal that has to be in mind as well. And where does that goal come from? Does it come from the family, or is that from you?
The family's involved for sure in the management decisions, but we also the Nilgai management was influenced by the cattle management on the ranch, because there's a lot more competition between cattle and Nilgai than there is between Nilgai and whitetail deer, and the overall goal for the ranch while I was there was to reduce the Nilgai densities, and so I implemented minimum cow Nilgai harvest prescriptions for all the lessees on the divisions where Nilgai occurred, and then we also implemented minimum bull harvest quotas, and then we also increased the amount of commercial hunting that was done for Nilgai, and we also increased the amount of the USDA approved meat harvest for Nilgai that was done too.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, were you able to put like an economic value on how how Nilgai compared to the cattle production on the ranch, and which one was more valuable economically?
Yeah, with the Nilgai, we sold commercial Nilgai hunts that were guided by King Ranch staff, and so obviously the ranch received income from those hunts, but it was not anywhere in the same ballpark or the same league as the money generated from the cattle. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no comparison between the two. Cattle,
and I guess most of that is
anything from Nilgai.
Most of that revenue is from like guided Watusi hunts, right? And that where people are making the most money.
We didn't have no. Yeah, there were some woolly mammoth hunts that we did.
It's good. It's good.
So why have Nilgai if the cattle just outweighs the economic benefit?
Yeah, if you asked a cattle person, he wouldn't be able to answer that. He'd say, "I don't know why we have Nilgai." Right?
Yeah.
No, exotics offer a great additional recreational opportunities outside of the normal fall hunting season, because in Texas you can hunt species of exotics, including Nilgai, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can hunt them year round, and so they provide a lot of recreation outside of the standard hunting season, and so that's a big benefit there. And not everything's about how much money you make off things either, right? Mm-hmm. And so they were originally stocked on the ranch. I mean, Caesar's thinking was that there wasn't any other species, any other big, there were cattle, but in between cattle and deer, there weren't any other species on the ranch. And he felt like the Nilgai filled a niche that was open between cattle and deer. Mm-hmm. And that's why they were chosen and that they were stocked there,
Mm-hmm. I'm with you on the not everything's about money, but I just feel like when it comes to a big ranch in Texas, there's a lot of things about money. So that's kind of why.
That's how you know he wasn't actually born in Texas, because Texans would say everything's about money. No.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Texas, and I would agree with you.
Obviously, bottom line matters on a privately owned ranch, and finances are important. I mean, and so the cattle and the wildlife needed to pay the bills for the ranch, right? And so that's why it's still a working cattle ranch today, is because of the money that it generates, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was very important.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about quite often on the show is the value of private land conservation, because, I'm sure you are very versed in the whole public land, advocacy nowadays, and rightfully so it's a great thing. But, I mean, Texas, of course, is the poster child for what you can actually get done on private land. Yeah, the public access to that is not there, but just that the existence of wildlife is very important, right? Like, how was the King Ranch able to, do such a great job? I mean, outside of just employing you, right? But like, what are some of the key factors in, conservation of wildlife species doing so well there?
Yeah, the folks at King Ranch way before I got there were really innovative. They were the first private ranch to hire a full-time professional biologist in Val Lehman in the 1940s. Mm-hmm. And nobody had done that before then. So they recognized way back then the value and the importance of managing for wildlife. And they started leasing out the hunting rights on the Encino division in the 1970s, the late 1970s. And by the time I arrived on the scene at the King Ranch, they were leasing out around 400,000 acres of the ranch to about 40 different lease groups. And and the revenue generated from that is pretty substantial.
Yeah,
for sure.
can you talk real quick about, for those who aren't familiar with the King Ranch, what the acreage is and what it's like, and some of the division sizes and how that all works?
Yeah, the King Ranch was founded by Richard King. It's 825,000 acres. At one point, it was over 1 million acres. It's now, and has been for several decades, at around 825,000 acres. It's spread across 7 counties along the Gulf Coast of Texas, south of Corpus Christi. There are 4 divisions to the ranch. 2 of the divisions are contiguous. The northern divisions, Santa Gertrudis and Laurellis, are connected to each other. And then the 2 southern divisions are separate. The Norris division and the Encino division. The Encino division is the smallest of the 4 divisions. If I remember correctly, it's around 110,000 acres, that one division. Mm-hmm. The Laurellis division, which also connects to the Santa Gertrudis division, but the Laurellis division, I think, is around 377,000 acres. And it literally goes from the city limits of Kingsville to the city limits of Corpus Christi. It's everything in between those 2 cities on the north side of Baffin Bay.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you haven't driven that highway and you're listening, that's quite a ways. Yeah. It's a long way.
It's 18 or 19 miles.
Yeah.
And on that division, there's also an 80,000 acre row crop field.
So golly. Man, that's nuts.
So cool.
Is there I guess, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, so I'm sorry, but is there a habitat difference in these? I'm sure that when these divisions were created, it was probably a lot more for cattle or whatever, but is there, like, do each have their own separate biome or their individual characteristics that you approach with a different management idea?
Yeah, definitely. The 2 northern divisions have a lot more clay in the soil. The clay contents, it's real heavy loam clay soil for Laurellis, which is why it's also the good farm ground. Mm-hmm. None of the other 3 divisions are row crop farmed, except for a small part of the Santa Gertrudis division. The 2 southern divisions are within the coastal sand plain sheet, and so they're a deep sandy soil. And some of the world's best quail hunting on those 2 divisions because of that sand sheet and that deep sand. So there's big habitat differences among the 4 divisions.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So the sand provides brush like sand plums and stuff like that for the quail, or why is the sand area?
The sandy sheet soil area, the brush, the native natural brush occurs in motts, a mott pattern, naturally, with a lot of grass cover in between the motts. And the 2 northern divisions have become brush choked. I mean, 80-90% of the landscape is heavy, thick brush. It's not ideal quail habitat. But the 2 southern divisions, because of that sand sheet, it's naturally open. Different brush plants that are, and that mott pattern is just a natural pattern. That's how the landscape has maintained itself, and it's a lot better quail habitat as a result. And in the sandy soil, any kind of disturbance like hoof action from cows, that soil disturbance promotes weeds. And so there's just a flush of weed growth every spring. After every rainfall event, there's a flush of weeds that are great. Most of those weeds are great seed producers for quail. Mm-hmm. And also attract insects for quail and for the quail chicks to eat, and so it's phenomenal quail habitat that sand country is.
Sure. So at 825,000 acres and 1 Mick Hellickson, how you can't, there can't be a way that by yourself you're able to do this. What kind of team surrounds you there, and how do you just the paperwork involved in the different studies and stuff that you're doing. How do you keep up with all that?
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I commonly worked 70-hour work weeks, And then during the hunting season, with guiding duties added to everything, I sometimes worked 12, 13, 14 days straight too. So it was a lot of work for me. But we had a thanks to my boss, Butch Thompson, the wildlife manager for the King Ranch at the time I was there. He was the person that hired me. He allowed me to hire on a couple more biologists that worked for us. We had a biologist that handled the family country primarily. We had a biologist for each of for two of the divisions each. And then we also made it a mandatory requirement that all of the 40 leases, that they each individually hired either a full-time, part-time, or consulting professional wildlife biologist themselves. Mm-hmm. So when we did our population monitoring, like the helicopter survey for the buck doe harvest prescriptions, we provided those to our lessees, and we required that the biologist on staff that they also collect some really detailed harvest data that allowed us to monitor the effectiveness of our management program and to monitor the progress and make comparisons. We had full Boone and Crockett scores on every buck harvested. We had front incisor teeth pulled from every buck harvested for cementum annuli aging after the hunting season. We had every deer had to be weighed to provide either the live weight or field dressed weight. I mean, we implemented a lot of harvest measuring requirements for quail too, in addition to deer, and also nilgai. And we expected the leases to follow that, and that's why we made them, made the requirement that they hire a biologist. So if you can imagine, there was about 40 or 50 professionally trained wildlife biologists working on King Ranch each year that I was there as a result of all of that.
So one of the things you're going to encounter after you have been doing some deer data acquirement through the years is, what do you do with all these pictures, all this information that you get? Actually, Tyler was on the phone a while ago, and I organized my desktop because I had windows everywhere, or not windows, sorry. What are they called on Macs? Icons. Okay. So, and I had trail camera pictures and videos and all kinds of stuff on there. But guys, there is a new solution. Okay. Moultrie Mobile on their app now has cloud storage. Okay, so you can take any of your trail camera pictures that you get from your Moultrie new Delta cell cams they just came out with, or an old one or whatever, and store that stuff on the mobile app on the Moultrie cloud. All right, I don't know if you all understand what that means, but like, you take the digital copy and you send it out there into space, and it stays there until you need it. Okay, that's the cloud. All right, so it makes organization way easier because you don't have to keep up with this stuff on your computer, on a hard drive, on the 38 SD cards that you don't know what to do with. Instead, it's just in this one place on the Moultrie mobile app. So go check that out and go to moultriemobile.com.
So your guiding responsibility, is that a responsibility that comes with, like, essentially, are you taking people and saying, hey, these are deer that you cannot shoot? And, are you familiar enough with the deer that's the case, or why are you guiding as well as a biologist?
We had areas of the ranch that were designated as commercial hunting areas, and so these areas were neither leased nor were they hunted by the family. They were for commercial deer hunting only, and so and we needed that revenue to fund the wildlife department. And to the ranch's credit, they wanted the ranch to be run like a business. And so they wanted it to be self-supporting. And so when Butch became the wildlife manager, he had the foresight to expand the wildlife department and added on 3 full-time wildlife biologists. We had an internship program. Well, we needed money to pay for that, right? And so, it couldn't just be from raising the lease fees. I mean, that money went directly to the family. But so he expanded the commercial hunting operation too. And everybody's responsibility was to assist with the guiding. Everybody wants to hunt during the peak of the rut, right? And so everybody was working really hard then, doing hunts, including myself, including Butch. And then in the off season, we're guiding nilgai hunts on the family country, because the family members, they're not interested in shooting a whole bunch of cow nilgai to reduce the deer density, to reduce the nilgai population. So we went in there during the off season outside of the quail hunting season and commercially harvested nilgai, and guided nilgai hunting.
So you're touching there on, the whitetail stuff, and that I know that's kind of what your passion is. So we've talked some about, the ranch and stuff, but can you kind of just give insight as to why that brush country is such great habitat and resources for whitetail deer, and why you're able to grow really kind of giant bucks? What's the theory? You can tell me about this better than I can, but there's the theory that things get larger as they leave you head north away from the equator, right? And so that country down there is kind of an anomaly because you're able to grow large deer, both body and antler size, kind of in an anomaly area. You know what I'm saying? I'm not putting this together very well, but...
Yeah, what you're referring to is Bergman's rule, and that's the general rule of thumb. Yeah, that body size increases as you move north from the equator, and it's thought to be for heat conservation primarily, right? The surface of the body area, the surface to body size ratio changes for heat conservation, and so South Texas being a lot closer to the equator than Canada and the Midwest, you would expect the deer to be a lot smaller. And the body sizes are smaller for native Texas deer. I mean, most of the mature bucks on King Ranch will field dress between 125 and 150 pounds. So they're not big bodied necessarily, but they're big antlered on average. And the biggest reason for that is because of the tremendous age structure. There's just, on the King Ranch, while I was 20 to 30% of the buck population was made up of mature bucks that were 5+ years old, and you only find those kind of buck age classes in South Texas. You don't find them anywhere else in the world. Nowhere else has that kind of buck age structure. And it's because of the lower harvest rate and the lower hunter density. In South Texas, you're doing 96, 97% privately owned land. And so getting distracted over here, guys. And that podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is that dog doing in here? Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
It's fine, man.
Yeah, we just had an English pointer come into our house with a collar. It's not our dog. Somebody just an English pointer, and it came into my den where I'm at, and so my wife followed it in. Anyway, okay. And so, and then the second thing you guys hit on already too is the habitat, the brush in South Texas. What's unique about it, and it's the stem tips and leaves are real high in protein content, but it's not as ideal forage as soybeans and lab, but it provides really an unlimited base for the deer always to fall back on during times of drought and things like that. There's always that brush, the baseline that they can fall back on. So deer never starve in South Texas because nearly, I don't know, guys, 90% probably plus of the landscape is brush covered. Unlike anywhere else too. I mean, there's places where 100% of the landscape is plant covered, national forests and national parks and things like that. But it's unique in South Texas because the brush species, and there's always that baseline of brush to fall back on for the deer to feed on. Now they prefer to eat weeds. Is what they prefer to eat are forbs, broadleaf plants, non-grass plants, and non-brush plants is what they prefer to eat. But those are only available following rainfall, And so in between rains, deer are eating the stems and leaves of brush plants in South Texas. So, but the age structure and then that base of brush are the two things.
Yeah.
The light hunting pressure allows for that buck age structure. And then in South Texas, more so than anywhere else in the country, people are actively managing for deer too. They're planting food plots, but more importantly, they're providing supplements That's a very common practice in South Texas where people put out gravity flow pellet feeders to feed deer, manufactured deer pellets, that are a complete ration. Mm-hmm. And that really helps to grow bigger bodies and bigger antlers too.
Yeah. So with that, like, when you're the chief biologist of the King Ranch, do you know, or at least some specific leases or areas of the ranch? Are you familiar with certain bucks, or like do you have a catalog, or how do you keep up with what deer or what age and that kind of thing before they're actually killed?
Yeah. You're guessing the age by looking at different characteristics on the hoof, and a couple of the key characteristics to focus on are stomach girth, the juncture of the neck and the front of the shoulders, how deep that juncture is. Mm-hmm. The antler mass at the base is another good age characteristic to key in on. Growth spoon and Crockett score is good. What you have to be careful of there is mistakenly shooting your biggest middle-aged bucks, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that's why you also want to use body characteristics like stomach girth in combination to avoid, middle-aged bucks don't have big guts. I mean, it's the old bucks that have the big bellies, mm-hmm. kind of like men. And at least me included.
Yeah.
My waistline keeps growing as my age goes up.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not old. You're just mature.
That's it.
There you go. Yeah. And then now with the advent of the trail camera, we've got individual bucks on leases that are tracked from year to year based on trail camera photos and observations. Where once yearling bucks, you really can't identify when they're older at 2 unless they have some kind of unique color pattern to their coat or something distinctive about their body, mm-hmm. because the antlers change so much from 1 to 2 that yearlings aren't really identifiable again at 2. But once the buck is 2, the main shape of his rack is developed to the point where you can usually identify that same deer from year to year following that. Mm-hmm. And so your biggest 2-year-olds, and so you're gonna know at least 2 if they have a bigger rack than a yearling, for example. And your biggest 2-year-old bucks, it's going to be the first time they showed up in your trail cameras. Mm-hmm. And so once you identify your better 2-year-old bucks, then you're able to track them until you've taken 3 years worth of pictures of them, and then you know that they're 5. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one way. So, on one division of the King Ranch, we were involved in a research project, the South Texas Buck Capture Project, where we were catching bucks at random by helicopter and net gun on 2 pastures of the Morellis division, and we were ear tagging bucks that were with ear tag colors that were color coded for age, right? Mm-hmm. So that allowed hunters, by knowing the tagging program, to be able to selectively harvest bucks based on ear tag color. But that's obviously not something you can do anywhere else under any other circumstance. So, mm-hmm. so instead, we're following trail cameras and then guessing their age based on body and antler characteristics.
So I have a question about antler characteristics. There's the old kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, hunter's tale, that a deer's antlers can swap sides, sort of, and still maintain some characteristics. So say this buck has a drop time between G2 and G3 at age 3 on the left side, and then you see a deer next year, but the drop time's on the right side and everything's the same. How do you feel about that? Have you heard that theory or have seen much about that?
Well, with that buck capture project I alluded to, we captured bucks on the 2 state areas for 7 years in a row on the King Ranch, and we had I remember the buck well. It was a double drop time buck first time we caught him, and we tooth where aged him at 3. Well, we rounded it up to 3 because we knew he couldn't be 2, but that's what his teeth showed, was that he was only 2 years old and he had double drops, right? So we ended up calling him a 3-year-old. Well, we were able to recapture that buck all the way until he was age 7, and one year he didn't have any drop tines. Another year he had a drop tine just on one side. Another year he had a drop tine on the other side. And so drop tines and forks and things like that, those kind of individual antler characteristics can fluctuate on the same buck from year to year. But the general frame shape, the shape of the brow tines, length of the brow tines, I mean, you want to look at all those characteristics combined, and that usually allows you to identify that same buck from year to year. In this case, the buck was marked with microchips, and there was no mistaking that was the same buck.
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you must have how do you keep up with all that? Like that's a lot of information. Do you have pictures of the deer? And that just seems overwhelming to me. I mean, I guess with digital filing now, it's not probably as big of a deal, but maybe in the past it was.
Back then, there was one wildlife biologist on staff that really spearheaded the commercial hunting operation, and he was the person most actively scouting the bucks and identifying the shooter bucks, and well, him and another full-time wildlife biologist, those two guys together spent a large part of their work week, identifying shooter bucks and following them, and you know what I mean. Now, for the bucks in that study, it was fairly easy to follow those, but the rest of the ranch, no. I mean, and then on each individual lease, there's usually somebody there on that lease, that's following individual bucks from year to year based on trail cameras or blind observations or observations from the helicopter. Each lease was kind of doing their own thing. Where on the leases where trophy deer hunting was important, a majority of the leases, quail hunting was more important than the deer hunting.
Gotcha. So what was the biggest deer you ever saw on the King Ranch?
On the hoof, gosh, it's funny. They just killed a 272-inch buck there this past time.
Oh my goodness!
A 267 or 268 untypical. It broke the ranch record by 40 inches or so, 35 inches.
How old was that deer?
The guys, it was killed on the Santa Gertrudis, the lease that surrounds the Clayburgh County Airport, the Motus Negris lease, and it's the lessee's sugar operation out of Florida, and the wildlife biologist that's on staff there for that lease, I'm sure he had a good idea how old the buck was, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Man,
5, 6, or 7. To kill a buck like that, he's going to have to be 5 at least on the ranch. So, but the biggest buck I ever saw on the hoof, trying to think we captured a buck as part of the study that was 199. And then that buck was harvested a year after the study ended, and he was, I think he gross scored 210.
Wow.
And so that's probably the biggest buck I ever saw on the King Ranch.
That's cool. Wow. You've seen a lot of big bucks. From what you have observed, what age do they have their peak antler performance?
Yeah, we've got great actual capture data to back this up. And this is with known age bucks only. These are bucks that we initially captured as fawns or yearling bucks, where you cannot make a mistake aging them by tooth replacement and tooth wear. And so they're initially captured as fawns and yearlings, and then they're recaptured or harvested at an older age, and we know the interval in between, so we know the age at the time of harvest or capture. And statistically, there's no difference between 5, 6, and 7-year-old bucks in average gross Boone-Crockett score. So antler size peaks at age 5 to 7. There's not a statistical difference, but a numerical difference. The highest average scores for 6.5-year-old bucks, but it's not statistically different from the 5-year-old or the 7-year-old bucks. So 5 to 7 is your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
and then the average gross Boone-Crockett score drops off a little bit at 7, and it drops off a little bit more at 8. The average does. So
gotcha.
5 to 7. It's hard to get bucks that old.
Sure.
Anywhere,
Yeah.
And so
Now, is that going to translate across the U.S., or do you think that like those big Iowa bucks up there, since they have, I guess, less limited resources, can they just continue to grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. Nobody has the data to answer that question, except in a captive or penned environment. But for free ranging whitetails, nobody has the same kind of data that we have in South Texas. But I would guess it's the same. I would guess antler size across the whitetails range peaks from 5 to 7 years old. Now, 3 and 4 year old Midwestern bucks can get a lot bigger than 3 or 4 year old South Texas bucks.
Sure, yeah.
And so but I think those same bucks would be even bigger at 5 to 7, at 3 to 4, right? So.
Cool.
But I guess maybe you're asking, do they peak at an age? And I would guess no, but there's not any data either way on that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That's kind of, it's just there's always these variables that are just kind of unanswerable. And that's kind of what makes them cool. I think a little bit. It's why you can go to Raymondville and shoot a whitetail and think it's cool, and you can go to Des Moines and shoot a deer and think it's cool. So it's kind of neat how they can just survive in so many different places.
So, you like to spend some time in Iowa every year. I guess technically back home. Is this something you like to do because you like big deer, you like lots of deer, or it's a change of scene, or it's back home, or what? Why spend time in Iowa?
Yeah, the answer is all of the above. But, primarily to be able to hunt with family. I mean, my brother and I co-own some farmland in southwestern Iowa, central southwestern Iowa, Zone 4, Union County, from Humboldt County, which is a one county south of the Minnesota state line. But that part of the state is real intensively farmed. It's about 90+% of the landscape's farmed, and so there's deer there where I grew up are hunted almost to extinction each year, and individual woodlots and river bottoms. So, so go back up to hunt with my brother and hunt with family, hunt with friends. That's a big draw. But also hunting big free ranging deer is also another big draw. And we've been actively managing our farm, and it started out as a lease in southern Iowa since the mid-90s. And so we've been working on this for 25 plus years, 26 years. We've been hunting the same farms and neighboring farms. And with our leasing operation, at one time we controlled the hunting rights to 10,000 acres in Union County, Iowa. And you can imagine,
wow,
what kind of bucks you can grow when you're controlling that much hunting rights, right?
Yeah.
And so, but now we own almost 700 acres, and we lease 1,000 to 2,000 acres around that now, and that's what we've been doing the last 10 or 12 years. And but we're still really successful at growing older age bucks, and we're less successful at killing them. It's a little easier to grow them up there.
Yeah,
we still have to grow them up there, but gosh, guys, I mean, just because we grow a 5-year-old buck doesn't mean we're going to kill it up there. In fact, I think we probably kill, a fourth or third of the big bucks that we have every year on trail camera. We'll probably successfully harvest only 25 to 30% of those bucks. And South Texas, what's unique about South Texas is every buck you get to that size and age, if you really want to, you can kill it because of the 5-month rifle hunting season.
Yeah.
Being able to hunt from a moving vehicle, hunting over bait, all those things that are legal in Texas that aren't legal in Iowa means that, if you grow a big buck on a ranch in South Texas and you want to kill it, you can kill it. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't translate to Iowa or the Midwest where, I think we only kill about a fourth of our big bucks up there every year. So a lot of big bucks go unharvested up there.
That's kind of exciting.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, so you said a hot word a while ago, and we got to talk about this. We had you on the podcast. You mentioned free range. And I know this is so subjective, and I would just like to have your opinion. If you go and set up in a stand, overlooking a corn feeder or whatever it might be, At what size? How big does the pen need to be before you feel like the deer is untainted that you're shooting?
You used a bad word there, calling it a pen.
I knew that'd get you going.
I'm not going to shoot any deer in a pen, no matter the size of the pen. So I'm just not going to do that. But a high fence ranch, if the perimeter of a ranch is high fenced, and I would never call it a pen, but gosh, guys, it really depends on the habitat.
That's true.
It depends on the management that's taking place there. Mm-hmm. Because, guys, this is the truth, and I've told people this. But the 825,000 acre King Ranch is low fenced. Every deer on that ranch is free ranging, native, wild. But, guys, I've never hunted a deer herd anywhere else in America that was more gentle, more easier to hunt, where the deer were more visible, more approachable. That's cool. I mean, guys, I stalked with my bow. I stalked a buck and shot it bedded at under 30 yards. So that he gross scored in the 180s.
That's awesome, man.
And the employee hunting club. But I can't imagine being able to stalk with my bow a buck in Iowa. I mean, it would just take a whole lot more effort. And there would be a lot of times when I came home empty-handed. I mean, it's just. And what I'm saying though is that 825,000 acre King Ranch has the easiest deer to hunt that I'm aware of anywhere, and that includes high fence ranches that I've hunted that are under 500 acres. You can have deer in a high fence that are the wildest deer you've ever encountered. It all depends on the management that's taking place there, right? And so but in general, a high fence ranch in South Texas with the hunting regulations that are in place. You grow a big buck, you can kill it, right? And so and you compare that to hunting in the Midwest, it's a lot easier hunting. It really is. I mean, hunting from a tripod, or a high rack with a rifle that you can shoot out to 500 yards, and then having 5 months to do it, and then being able to do it, with the deer at a corn feeder, or it's just a lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a friend who went and actually he's from up north and came down to shoot some pigs and kind of did one of those 300-acre high fence pig hunts, and he said it was like the craziest thing ever because those hogs were the wildest, scariest, spookiest pigs you'd ever seen, and it kind of like threw a kind of a wrench into like my thoughts about high fence hunting or whatever, because like if you do it the wrong way, those deer are or hogs or whatever the animal is going to feel highly pressured all the time. Yeah. But
that's neat, man. So I guess as far as the Iowa stuff goes, you guys are managing that property. Is this just a harvest management, or are you supplementally feeding? Are you burning? What all are you doing there on the property?
Yeah. On the land that we own, we've planted over 45,000 trees.
Wow.
And we've converted most of the row crop ground to CRP ground, that's in tall grass prairie plants. And so we've done a lot of active habitat management. We've got just a phenomenal food plot program, and most of our hunting is done during the shotgun season up there. We have a few members that are bow hunters, that are resident Iowans. But you guys probably know if you're not a resident Iowan, you only get to bow hunt the state every third or fourth year. And even though I own land in Iowa and I'm from Iowa originally, I'm just like every other non-resident. I have to gain preference points and put in the draw to get a buck tag, right? So I end up mostly shotgun hunting in Iowa because of the party hunting system that's allowed up there, know. And so what that all boils down to is I'm up there in early December hunting, a month after the peak of the rut. And so the things that we've done to improve huntability up there, other than the habitat work, are to have food plots that peak in attractiveness to deer in December. And so the three crops that work the best are corn, soybeans, and then a turnip or a brassica or a radish. And so our food plot program involves those three. And to successfully have standing corn and soybeans in early December, we we have electrical hot wires around all our food plots, excluding the deer from the food plot until about a week before the gun season. Then we'll take out we'll disconnect the hot wires and allow deer to start accessing those food plots. And so they're peaking. It's worked really well. I mean, we really suck in the deer in December when we're up there shotgun.
I bet.
That's cool.
And then with the habitat management done, and then by controlling the hunting rights, we're able to get bucks. And then to our neighbors' credit, guys, over the last 25 years, they've seen the success we've had. And they themselves have harvested lots of big bucks. Now, most of our neighbors are actively passing up young bucks that are 1 or 2 years old. And in some cases, some of our neighbors are passing up, 3 and 4 year old bucks like we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and so it's become a neighborhood effort now, too. It's really worked out well.
That's good.
We've killed 18 net Boone and Crockett bucks.
Oh, my.
Nets, baby.
My brother's he's shooting for his 5th one, and so he got one at net 169. And he calls that his 5th, but he's not quite there.
Yeah. Man, that's nuts.
159 to make the award book. It missed it by an inch.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, that's sounds like you. I mean, obviously your resume tells me that you know what you're doing, but it definitely sounds like you're still on your game. I really appreciate you doing this, man. This has been fun. We love biology and just some of the cool stories that entail around things such as legendary as the King Ranch. I have one more question for you. What is the most odd or weird or just striking thing that you have seen in the deer world in your time working and hunting?
Wow, that's a great question. And off the top of my head, I don't have a great answer for you. But I was on the phone with another deer biologist that you guys probably know, Brian Murphy.
Yeah,
know him well.
Yeah, the former CEO of the QDMA. Talking to him on the phone earlier today, and I had sent out a slideshow to all of my consulting clients, and then to everybody in my folder, the email address book, that included a photo from a helicopter of a doe that had been run over by a train. She was laying dead inside the tracks of the train, and on this ranch, the railroad tracks run through about 3 miles of the ranch, right next to a pretty well-traveled highway. And so I think what happened is that doe got flushed by traveling on the highway into the path of the train. And I asked the ranch manager how often that happened. And he'd found 4 other dead deer last hunting season that were killed by the train. So that was pretty weird to see a deer killed by a train. And then it made me wonder, with the manager's experience, how often or how many deer die every year from collisions with trains, right? I mean, I never thought of it.
Yeah. That's nuts. Yeah. Not something you would, I don't know. It's just weird. I guess, when, especially at nighttime, they get a little light in their eyes and they just freak out. It's like, man, you just can't trust a squirrel. You know what I mean? The squirrel gets on the road. You just don't know what it's going to do. And obviously a deer doesn't quite do what a squirrel does, but I think that sometimes when you got 2 loud things on each side of you, it can be overwhelming the senses, for a deer, I'm sure.
And I think, guys, that they probably run into the train, too. They're not just hit by the train, by being in front of the train, because that probably happens less often. But a deer, running blindly to get away from something, I can see it running right into a moving train, right? That because of the length of the train, trying to get across and running right into a train.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, first time I was in Iowa, I actually saw a deer crossing a train track. I got a picture of it, actually, crossing the train track. So apparently the tracks don't bother them too much when there's not a train on there.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're a busy guy and you've got probably all kinds of deer things that you'd rather be doing, but I appreciate you talking to us.
Yeah, you guys are more than welcome.
Sure. All right. Well, we'll see you soon, man.
All right. Good to talk to you.
Well, let's keep this train a-rolling. We're going to go...
is that dad jokes because Father's Day is coming up?
That's right. Yeah, that's why I did that. I'm pretty good at dad's jokes. Dad's jokes. Oh, y'all. Anyway, y'all need to go watch our YouTube where we can edit out all of the things that we misspeak. This is a place that we are putting hunt breakdowns right now. YouTube. It's a platform where you can watch digital videos, and they are free. They are free. And so if you go to YouTube and check out our channel, if you haven't yet, you can subscribe and you can watch hunt breakdowns, which we are releasing, which are basically you and I just like gamer style watching the videos, and you can see how we react, what we're talking about. We can get a little extra commentary in there about how the hunt's going or what's going on behind the scenes that we didn't get video of. And then we talk about why we were successful or in a lot of cases unsuccessful in that particular hunt. And then if we have a mount back from that deer, we show you the mount as well. Yeah. So they're pretty cool videos. They've been received well, except for people hate the fact that I legally sat in a dude's stand. People do hate that though, but that's okay because I'm still within the law. I am not an outlaw. And I don't play outlaw country. Anyway, guys, go check that out. And remember, this is your element.
Living it. Why not? Why not?
The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.